Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to another live stream today. I am joined in the studio by Chris Gilsenan of Root Home, a property developer very much focused on the social housing sector. Market, is it a market? Is it a sector? Who can tell? And we often chew the fat about certain things that apparently are on the horizon that are either irritating or grinding Chris's gears. And today is no exception. What is all this nonsense about 3% you mentioned, Chris?
Yeah, well, look, it looks like the interest rates are starting to normalize, and there are some interesting reports coming out of different financial think tanks where they're projecting where the rates are going to be over maybe next year, maybe a bit further.
Current interest rates are about 5 and a bit.
5.25.
Right. So, and you are mentioning the potential of them. Well, to me, it's like dropping like a stone.
Yeah, I think that I don't think they'll make the mistake of doing it too quickly, which would have a detrimental effect. It would cause inflation to bounce back. So inflation is currently about 3.4,
which
which
is
is
copable, which is okay, I think, in many ways.
It's manageable. It's reasonable at that level. It would probably be higher if you factored in. Oh, sorry, it would probably be lower if you took out the account of how rental prices are still on the increase. So they're up at nearly double digits at the moment.
Yeah, but this is nuts. You were telling me off air that there are many landlords have left the marketplace. They've turned up their toes, sold up, and they've gone to private dwellings. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the PRS is shrinking year on year. Yeah, the private rental sector, sorry, it's shrinking year on year. Landlords have had enough. They're sick of all the sorts of regulation, compliance, and things like that. I was always taught to view it as an opportunity because it will cause exactly what the current situation is. That it's a reduction in competition, reduction in supply, but that does create an opportunity for the people who, or certain people who do want to leverage that particular position. But the people who are suffering at the moment are definitely people who are renting. They're getting squeezed, primarily because of lack of supply. And it's not mean, ogreous landlords who are increasing the costs. It's each other. They're chasing after the same stock. So even after demand's kind of normalized a little bit after the insane peak of the 2021 period, I'm told that you're still looking at about 15 people or 15 different parties viewing every property, which is double where it was pre-pandemic.
But
Which
it's
is a huge
not.
amount of people.
It feels like a race to the bottom. And not only that, but factor into the fact that there are very few new build properties, really, on top of which very few new build properties with social housing as at their core. The aging population is increasing, which all of these things are creating, to my mind, a kind of perfect storm. And then you if you drop the interest rates, that's going to make things interesting, is it not? Because on the one hand, yes, it will reduce your mortgage monthlies from the point of view of an owner. But on the one and the other, and hang on, will it make it easier to get on the property ladder? I'm not sure it'll make much difference to that.
It will help. It will help. I mean, there's still stress tests that are applied when people put their mortgage application in. So there are certain levels that the lenders won't lend over. However, yes, it will take some of the burden off. Though the people with existing mortgages, so it will reduce the number of repossessions. Repossessions primarily happen in the landlord space rather than in the residential space.
Really? How interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, it should by a factor of about 10 to 1. But yeah, it should ease the burden of people being repossessed. It will ease the burden of those mortgages that are in existence at the moment. It will make it a little bit easier to get into borrowing a mortgage. Yeah, so in theory, you'll have potentially more people coming into the market, as we've already seen with the reduction in some of the rates over the last few months. So lots of both first-time buyers, people looking for their own home, as well as investors are now back in the market and very active. So they're providing a huge amount of competition for people like me, who is trying to diversify across different strategies, trying to find, for example, landlords who are looking to sell their portfolios. And I'm obviously always in the market looking to buy. So
But
interesting times.
it's a weird time, because from the point of view of providing support to the beleaguered, squeezed middle, I would say this is not really helping.
Like I say, I think it will be a gradual process. It's on the horizon, so there will be some normalization of rates. But what they won't do is drop the rates immediately. So the next MPC meeting, I think, is in May. The way that they've voted so far, they're voting to keep things consistent, not to push for a drop. That will, over time, adjust again. And like I say, we will see rate drops, but I don't think we'll see it in the next quarter, for example. They're not just
I
going
mean,
to instantly drop to three.
leading up to the last budget, I think you and I were talking about certain things which didn't come to light. Thank goodness. 0% mortgages and
100% mortgages, yeah.
100%, 100%, not 0%, 100% mortgages. And thank God, echoes of Northern Rock and all that. But we are still entering a weird period, are we not?
The elephant in the room is still.
From your perspective, you could hoover up, because with landlords saying, "I don't want any more of this nuts. It's too stressful." That's your hunting grounds.
That's
In
my
so
bread and
many ways.
butter. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
mind it being stressful. I don't mind the regulation, the compliance, everything else like that. We collaborate with capital partners who they partner with us because we are willing to take on that burden. So yeah, if landlords are looking to exit, we can help save a whole load of headache in putting their stock on the open market.
I mean, you've always told me that your game is very much the long game. It's not
Oh yeah.
about the quick flip, which I know a lot of people have characterized the British market as being. You find something undervalued, do it up, sell it quick.
It's one of multiple strategies. Yeah, it's hard to build a business just doing that. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people do it and do it great. They're just pure developers, so they build to sell. So yeah, there's certainly a corner of the market that very much thrives on that element. My perspective is I'd rather hold stuff for the long term. Certainly social housing, it kind of needs that level of stability. And it works both ways as well. So the providers that we work with, they offer us the long-term leases because we're in for the long haul.
I've got a hard question to ask you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. With the market prices still going through the roof for rentals, with the reduction in the amount of landlords that there are, the focus is on the landlords that are left. Is there also a reduction in quality and support for tenants in all that?
It's a good question, Gareth. With
I love the way,
supply being
guys, by the way, you listening, I love the way he says that with an air of surprise in his voice.
they're like any business, like any industry, I guess. There are rogues, there are naughty individuals, and they're this minority. But I think that on the whole, the industry is being forced to continually professionalize what it's doing and up its game. And quite rightly, I think the end users, effectively the tenants in this situation, they they want better standards of living, and they should be entitled to having good quality homes. So things like the HHSRS for housing standards, they do come into play to make sure that we have a decent home standard for the people who well, everyone needs a roof over their head. So yeah, it's absolutely right. So,
but the rentals are less regulated than perhaps just the pure home buying side of it.
I think it's highly regulated.
Do you
Really,
think so?
there's loads of statutes and regs that we are required to comply with. Yeah, yeah. Both national standards and local authority standards, which do vary area by area. But on the whole, there are a broad spectrum of standards that property should be maintained at for their users.
So, okay, let's project forward for the next 6 months for Route Home, given that your belief at the moment is the direction of travel is the 3% mark. Does that change any of your processes, or is it just rinse and repeat?
No change. No change for us. Yeah, it will ease some of the burdens in getting access to capital, both institutional lending and private lending,
Right.
because with the rates how high they have been, the expectations are also high. With those starting to come down a little bit, it eases the burden for us or lowers the barrier to entry on certain accessing certain pots of capital.
Is there any do you think there's any pressure for rentals to come down?
Price wise,
Yes.
huge amount, but the market's driven by supply and demand. So with the thousands and thousands of units being taken out of the market year upon year out of the PRS, yeah, prices are only going to continue to go one way. So it's a huge challenge. Huge challenge. Now, it's not like those properties are disappearing; they're just getting repurposed to a different market segment. However, it's the private rental sector that's being squeezed because of it.
So do you think there's do you think with a reduction in interest rates that will make it more attractive for existing landlords to stay in the marketplace, or even new landlords to spring out?
I think it will ease the burdens on existing landlords. However, they should also see it as an opportunity. So if they were looking to dump stock, it provides an entry point by having that lower barrier to entry for future landlords, future investors who are coming into the market and who do want to operate at a professional level that beholden to all the compliance and the regulations and everything else. So yeah, it provides another avenue for the previous landlords to exit and to continue that stock in the PRS rather than sell it to different market segments or institutional investors or whatever.
I mean, it appears to me that a healthy rentals market needs a certain amount of churn as far as providers is concerned. That is to say, landlords.
I think we need a healthy rental market, which we don't really have in terms of access to enough supply. So yeah, the supply challenge is not going away anytime soon. It's not being resolved. Local authorities seem to be completely disengaged with building and owning their own stock anymore. So
Yes,
yeah,
it's kind of weird how that's gone the opposite way. When I was a kid, there was always that fail-safe that if things went bad for me, if I couldn't get onto the property ladder, that the council would provide. Now it's absolutely not the case.
No, the old corporations are just they seem to be unwilling or unprepared to get involved. And I understand the financial pressures because of it, but again, we live in a fiat money system where they've demonstrated time and time again that they will turn on the taps for the things that suit them.
Yes, that's irritating, isn't it? There doesn't appear to be a whole deal of consistency there or of approach.
Well, there is. There's good consistency. It's bankers' bonuses, tick. War, tick. You and me, no.
Well, that's what I mean. I thought the welfare state was for the welfare of the people, not the welfare of the few. But it doesn't seem to be that way. We don't really seem to have a welfare state. It feels sometimes, and here's me being Mr. Controversial, it does feel like an oligarchy.
We live in an oligarchy, Gareth. It's an inverted system. But it'd be wonderful if more people stood up and said to the system. But I don't see it that often.
Do you think that I'm going to end on a controversial note? Do you think a change of government might start the reverse of that?
No. I think we need to. I think well. Let me reframe it. All the parties that are sat in the Commons at the moment, no. Just need clearing out.
Oh God. Well, on that Guy Fawkeyan note, I'd like to thank Chris for his ongoing continuous insights. Once again, I'm going to shamelessly plug another show that Chris and I are in, which is earlier in the day at 10 o'clock on Thursday, which called Property Quorum, where we, along with Chris, we have other experts and special guests talking about different elements. You can get an awful lot from that if you want to hear about it. This section really is about Chris spotting changes and having a good old gripe about them, and for me to show my utter ignorance in the field and ask silly questions. I hope you enjoyed it. We certainly do. And if you know that this is the sort of thing that strikes a chord with you, do carry on watching it and tell your friends, tell your enemies. I don't care. But thanks once again, Chris. It's been thoroughly amusing and slightly worrying, dare I say it, especially with that last little bombshell. Everyone watching, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know that we try and make this more lighthearted so that it's less of a chore and more of something you fancy listening to. But I would say we can only make it if we know that you guys are getting something from it. So I know every so often I come across people, who's that guy you talk to with the beard? I said, what do you mean that's me? I said, no, Chris. Oh, right. Yeah. So it apparently people are watching. It would be nice if you tell me what you need to hear. And on that note, I wish all of you a lovely weekend with safe mental health.